Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Torch Sports Sweet 16 special. Tonight, we've got coverage on both the men's and the women's teams and their trips to the Sweet 16. We will also take a look at each of the March Madness brackets. I'm your host, Jackson Schock, to the left, Sophie Starkey to the right, Luca Tal and Luke Lamry. Let's jump right in, and we start tonight by taking a look at the men's opponent, the Kentucky Wildcats. The Volunteers lost to Kentucky twice this season, first in Knoxville, then in Lexington. Friday's game will be the first time in program history Tennessee plays another SEC school in the March Madness tournament. So, the question on everybody's minds right now, how do the Volunteers win this game?
In my opinion, it has to be the shooting. And this has been a common theme that we've talked about this entire year. You look at the first two matchups that Tennessee has played against Kentucky. They shot an average of 38.7% from the field and 20.6% from three. Not very good. And if you're not making those shots, then you're not going to put up enough points to beat a team like Kentucky. But what Tennessee did well in their last 5 tournament games that we've seen, when they've been playing really well in the SEC tournament and their first 2 March Madness games, is they've upped those percentages. In the past 5 tournament games, they've averaged 45.7% from the field and 33.6%. So I'm looking to see those percentages continuing to get higher and higher for the Volunteers as they hopefully make a deeper run in this tournament. And you know, that's going to help them beat these high-level teams that are all left in the Sweet 16.
Absolutely, Luke. And one of the things that has caused the Volunteers to struggle to get that offensive momentum has been their turnovers against Kentucky. Each of Tennessee's losses against Kentucky was by a short margin, so they've got to lock in on the small, minute details. Looking at those past 2 matchups against Kentucky, the first one, Tennessee had 15 turnovers. Kentucky converted that into 18 points. Second matchup, Tennessee had 11. Kentucky converted that into 14 points. So if that teaches you anything about this Kentucky team, it's that they're going to capitalize on Tennessee's mistakes. So they have to dial in even to the smallest margin because there's no room to mess up against the Wildcats.
It's the little things.
Well, I like that. I like that idea, but I think we're missing a big detail here, and that's defense. I think that's a big hole in our style of play that really is a key aspect to this. Look, we've been talking about it all season. Me and him especially, we're fundamental, man, okay? We like the defense. We like the getting physical down there, you know, post up, pump fake, and just lay it in. You know, that's the ideal type of play we like. But what is really important is being able to play defense, because you can look at it, we've got big men. And we have to use them, okay? You look at the past 2 games against Kentucky. I like the rebounding. Okay, we've out-rebounded them, which is fantastic. What's missing there that's causing us to lose those 2 games is that style of defense that we need to play. You know, Kentucky can shoot, and we have to start defending the 3 because they have been absolutely on fire. If you're going to let them shoot 50%, you're not going to win the game, okay? If you're going to let them shoot 50% from 3 and from the field, it's over. There's no shot.
And on the note of defense, something that is very common with these Rick Barnes Tennessee teams is that the defense is obviously very physical, and that works great. You know, it slows teams' play styles. It a lot of times lets Tennessee play the way they want to play. But you get a lot of guys in foul trouble, and that gets dangerous down the stretch of the game. You saw it against Florida in the SEC Championship. You had Meshack, Lanier, and Okpara all in foul trouble late in the game, and it hurt Tennessee because, you know, those are 3 big guys for them, and, you know, 2 of them fouled out. One of them had 4 fouls. So the foul trouble is huge.
It comes down to discipline, too. You know, fundamentals and discipline, you've got to be able to, you know, and some of it's the refs. You can you know, you poke the fire and say, oh, the refs are calling bad calls. At the end of the day, you gotta be playing smart defense. Okay, there's some really dumb fouls out there that you cannot be making. You gotta play smart defense. And sure, if you're gonna get physical correctly.
That also comes down to Tennessee's bench. Kentucky's bench outscored Tennessee's by 10 points or more each time that they played, given Tennessee has less players than Kentucky. But that comes down to accuracy, and that defense can be playing their best game. But if our bench doesn't come in and contribute the offense that matches Kentucky's level, it's not going to help them at all.
All right, well, to get a better idea for the styles of play between these 2 teams, let's go to our guys at the big board, Patrick Falcon and Zach Pelfrey. Guys, how do each of these teams operate?
Yeah, thank you, Jackson. So one of the ways that Kentucky likes to operate is the 3-pointers. As we see, look down here. Guy draws down low. It's a bad matchup outside on the perimeter. Again, you'll see it on this next play. Watch this. Drives over, high ball screen, drives down low. You got 3 or 4 defenders, and you have 1 on the outside. Kentucky loves to play in this realm. It's going to get repetitive here very, very fast.
It seems to be these high ball screens, too. We can't figure out how to switch if we're hedging what we're supposed to do here. And then we always got a 2-on-1 on the backside, and whoever you don't choose is going to shoot the 3.
And you got to look, I mean, Kentucky, like they were saying earlier, Kentucky shot 12 for 24 for 3 in both games. As we see right here, another down low, draw in, sucks the defense in, and then they shoot a three. They make it again, 50%. Now let's go to the next game again. Kind of same thing, tough three. Kentucky draws them down low, and what does he do? Nails another three.
And they're not lucky shots. They're open. You shoot 50% not because you get streaky a couple nights. You're shooting 50% because you're shooting half your shots, half your three-pointers wide open, and that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's insane to see that Tennessee cannot guard the three.
And that's where it comes from. Then we go to Tennessee here, and it starts with the perimeter defense, or at least from the guards. We like to run that 1-2-2 versus UCLA, that full court press. We got Sakai and Gainey, two of our guards here, forcing a turnover, and then Lanier's going to take it, and he's going to take it all the way for the and one. And then you'll see in this next clip here, when we get to the perimeter defense and we're getting beat one-on-one, that's when Meshack has to help over. That's when Akpara has to help over. And Sakai stuck with the 2-on-1, wide open at the top of the key, and that's going to be another three. Same thing here. Igor's left with the 2-on-1, and he's going to try to go down low to the corner because that's your first read, but he's just going to swing it up to the wing, and that's easy three. And then we go to offense, and it starts with Sakai penetrating. That's what we need to do, Kentucky. We need to get three of their guys looking inside, and Sakai's best when he's assisting the ball. And there's none better like him in the game. So that's what we need. And then we need Chaz on the three-pointer as well. We like to draw them in a little bit, get some off-ball screen for Chaz. And ladies and gentlemen, know that is not Luka Tal. That is Chaz Lanier pulling up from about 35 feet, ready to drain a three. He had 29 versus Wofford. He had 20 in our last game versus UCLA. And that's what we need, this offense run through. Zakai Zeigler penetrating, getting in the paint, and getting our guys open. And then Chaz Lanier shooting the ball, quick trigger. I don't want any hesitation from him.
Perimeter defense. That's the name of this game coming up. Making sure Kentucky can get off the three-point line and make them get physical. Draw them in and let them play our game. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, and I really couldn't see the difference between you and Chad, I promise.
I don't know if I agree with that comparison, but I'll take it.
We've seen the tape. We've gone out to prove it now. Thanks, guys. Great work. And when it comes to assists, nobody does it better than Zakai Zeigler, and that doesn't just apply on the court. That applies off the court, too.
Zakai Zeigler, a fan favorite on the Tennessee basketball team since he was a freshman. 4 years later, he prepares for his final season on the court. But this year, he has another goal before March comes around, helping his two biggest fans. 7-year-old Nori and 2-year-old Rain are Zakai's two nephews who both suffer from hydrocephalus, a condition caused by too much fluid on the brain, leaving the boys unable to walk or talk.
Those are the two happiest babies I know. Like, every time I see them, they got big smiles on their face. They don't walk around talk, but I might say what's up to them, like give them a high five or something, and they just always have the biggest smiles on their faces.
Zeigler partnered with Knoxville's NPG Brain and Concussion, launching a foundation called Zakai's Assist to raise money for hydrocephalus research.
They're going to everybody, pretty much everybody with hydrocephalus. Not just my nephew, but everybody. I want to spread the word for all of them, and I just want everybody to have the right equipment and all the needs that they need to live.
Zakai and his nephews have a special relationship and a unique bond.
I think if they could talk, they would probably say he's their favorite person in the world. When he walks in the door, they light up.
Along with the two boys, he has another nephew, Storm, that loves him just as much.
Kai is the coolest.
Kai is the coolest.
Vol Nation played a big role in the Zeiglers' lives in 2022 when Zakai's mother's apartment in New York burnt to the ground. Tennessee fans raised over $350,000 for his family.
In that moment, even that night, the Vols came through for me.
With a new home in Tennessee, thanks to Vol fans across the globe, the Zeiglers are ready to face hydrocephalus head-on. Vol Nation, will you assist? In Knoxville, Alexi Cowan, Vol News.
Thanks, Alexi. Now, Zakai holds the record for most assists in program history. He also matched the SEC record for assists in a single season with 260. And a handful of those assists have gone to Chaz Lanier. Lanier has led the team, averaging 24.5 points in his last two games in the tournament. And the Vols as a whole have been very, very hot in tournament play. But as we've talked about before, it seems to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back for this team. The longest streak they had in the SEC play was 4 games. That's 4 wins in a row before a loss. Can this team keep this up?
I think they absolutely can, and I'll tell you why. Tennessee has a lot of seniors on this team, and in my eyes, March is a time for seniors. When you get to the end of your college career, you're playing harder. There's no doubt about it. You're playing to keep your career going. Right now, it's lose and you're done. You play no more college basketball ever, and that makes these upperclassmen play much harder in the tournament, in my opinion. And with Tennessee having as many upperclassmen and seniors as they do, that aren't going to play in a Tennessee jersey ever again as soon as they lose, this team's got plenty of heart to take them as far as they want to go. And I think that's going to be the difference maker against Kentucky in this game and for this Tennessee team going forward.
I mean, you can say, sure, they have the motivation, but do they have the mental wherewithal to back that up? And what I mean by that is, sure, they know what's at stake. They've got Rick Barnes out there. They've got the seniors out there. They've got a lot to fight for. But do they, they can think back and think, hey, we've been winning a lot of games. And when that's happened in the past, what's happened? We've lost one. And that's got to be echoing in the back of their mind. I invite the Vols to prove me wrong. I invite them to prove me wrong. But I'm going to tell you what. They're about due. They're about due for a shaky game, and I'm going to tell you what, they need to get it in line because I can guarantee you they're thinking about it. They're thinking about it.
I don't think they are. You can't be thinking that way. This Tennessee team,
you can say they can't be, but I guarantee you they are.
The Vols cannot have the mindset of, they've lost games after going on a win streak. They can't have that mindset, and I don't think they do. I think they have the mindset of, now I'm not in any of their heads.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I think this team is experienced enough, and Rick Barnes is as experienced as a head coach as any, to get this team to think forward, not backward.
Luke, I think this team absolutely has the heart, but I also think they've proved it in these last couple of games that they've been seasoned by their losses, and they're taking what they have learned and pushing it forward. They've made defensive adjustments. They're getting more physical when it comes to rebounding. Offensive efficiency is something they're always going to have to work on. I really think they've made adjustments. They know what's at stake. And with Igor locked in, Chaz locked in, and Zakai locked in, this Tennessee team is going to be one for other opponents to fear.
But you don't think through all those wins, there's one loss coming right after this? Do you think they've been on a winning streak? I'll tell you that. But do you think it's due? They're due for a loss.
I think Rick Barnes and this team is much smarter than that to get in their head. No matter how much they win, every practice I'm at, they're running those stairs. They're doing everything they need to do to get prepared. They know what's at stake, and I think they're going to pull through.
Now let's say theoretically, shots aren't falling. Shots aren't falling. Things aren't going well, which we've seen in the past with this Tennessee team. How do you feel? Luke, I'll start with you because you feel that the Vols aren't necessarily due for this. How do you feel that they solve the issue if shots aren't falling, if things aren't going their way?
Well, it's all mental. I mean, sports are so mental, you don't even realize that it's happening. I mean, you can look at the psychology behind it. You look at golfers. This guy knows golfers. I mean, the yips, and you look at kickers. The yips are there. Sports is so mental. And so if you get down, all of a sudden, you can try to think, well, let's all get together here and try to make some shots. It's not like that. You have to be able to sit down, take a rest, and if you don't have timeouts, you're screwed. Okay, so you have to, if you get down and they're going up runs on you, you have to be able to sit down and figure out what's going wrong, how do you attack it, and how do you move forward.
I think that's the special thing about this Tennessee team and Tennessee teams in the past is that even if they have bad shooting nights, which they do, they have defense to fall back on. Tennessee is holding teams to much less points than a lot of other teams in the NCAA tournament. And so even if you're not having your greatest shooting performance, it's not like you're being taken out of the game right away because you have that defense to rely on. And you know that, Kentucky isn't going to score as many points as they do against other teams because that Tennessee defense is just so powering and it's so in your face.
But the defense wasn't there last time for Kentucky.
It wasn't. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But I mean, like
several
we've been
games
saying,
ago, Luke. That was
a long time ago.
Played
I'm just saying,
very good games since then.
I understand I'm arguing against a crowd here, but I'm going to tell you what. I mean, it's 2 games against a Kentucky team that is still the same that we played them last time.
Yeah, but you said it was all about the mental game, but it wasn't enough when they had the mental heart to want to win. Contradicting what you're saying. I mean,
what does that even mean?
I mean, the mentality to want to win, the heart of having all of these seniors on this team, and then you're talking about that it's such a mental game. You're contradicting what you're saying.
I'm with Sophie. I think the confidence in this team.
Listen,
I can't even follow what she's trying to say.
Regardless of the outcome, regardless what happens, 2 things. 1, let's prove Lamb wrong. Right? Everyone wins if the Volunteers can prove Lamb wrong. Regardless of what happens on Friday, we wish the Vols the best of luck, and that's going to wrap up our conversation about this matchup, Tennessee's matchup that is against Kentucky. In the meantime, Sophie had the opportunity to sit down with Cade Phillips to discuss his time at Tennessee. Enjoy.
Make sure I was prepared for that when I got here, that I knew how to work and knew how to, grow.
Despite his Alabama heritage, Cade chose Tennessee because of its personal recruiting process and the support of his family.
The recruiting was, it was different. Is the only way I know how to describe it. When you're being recruited by schools, it's like they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to, get you like, this is the reason you need to come here. This was the one place where I felt like they weren't trying to sell me on something.
Though Crimson Tide alumni, you can find Cade's family in full support of Orange and White on game days.
I was lucky enough that my parents, even if you asked them after we got done with this visit, they said that this was by far their favorite place. And they really stayed out of my recruiting. They left that up to me a lot. And I mean, before going to bed every night, my dad would pray over me that I would be true to myself and who God made me to be. And so that was huge throughout my recruitment, was just my parents letting me be me. They're full-fledged Orange now. My dad makes jokes that in third week of October, he's going to smoke a cigar either way.
One of Cade's driving motives has been his faith in God. Before he came to Tennessee, he said, "Through anything, God gives me peace and strength to face all trials," something that has given him peace throughout the years.
It's everything for me. It's what keeps me going, and then that specific quote's kind of based off of Romans 5:3, 3 through 5, I think, where suffering produces endurance, endurance produces character, character produces hope, hope only that can be found in Jesus Christ. And that kind of that verse, that group of verses, was what really got me through some tough times of life. My faith, it's the ultimate, it's the foundation, it's unshakable. So everything else, people fail you, places fail you, but ultimately God cannot and will not fail you.
The jump from freshman to sophomore year can be extreme, and Cade is finding himself in different roles than prior years.
It's definitely changed. I'm kind of doing the same things I did last year, but on a larger scale. Last year I was supposed to redshirt, wasn't even supposed to play, and so ended up playing. So freshman year was kind of looked at as like a year of doing the best I could. It was really just finding my role, and then the jump to this year was, now that you know your role, let's work on everything else.
Tennessee head coach Rick Barnes' best piece of advice for Cade this season is, if you do what you're supposed to, there's nothing to stress about.
That's something he tells me before going into games, especially this year. He's been harping on it, when there's so much to worry about, so much going on, that if you're doing what you're supposed to, there's nothing to worry about. Everything else, control the controllable, is basically what he's saying.
Cade continues to grow and excel at Tennessee, and fans are excited to see what this season brings.
Welcome back to the Torch Sports Sweet 16 show. And oh, how sweet has it been? How sweet has it been? Now we take you to Jeremy, Nick, and Chance for a look around the bracket. Guys?
Thank you, Jackson. With the first two rounds in the books, March Madness is heating up even more. Strap into your seats as Chance Jones, Nick Rose, and I, Jeremy Knopf II, take you around the bracket for your Sweet 16 preview. Woo, let's go! You've already heard about part 3 of the Vols and Wildcats for 2025. But what about the other squads in the Midwest region? Well, to put it best, you can expect to see a high-flying contest between two elite college basketball programs in Indianapolis, the Big Ten's Purdue Boilermakers and the Big 12's Houston Cougars. After falling short in last year's national championship to UConn, Purdue was determined to make it back to the final dance. The 4th-seed Boilermakers reached past the Sweet 16 after cruising past 13-seed High Point and 12-seed McNeese. With the help of this electric offense led by Trey Kaufman-Wren, a junior who has totaled 43 points so far in this tourney run. Another junior in Braden Smith has stepped up for this defense, totaling 6 defensive rebounds and 11 turnovers since the first round. And that was just a handful of the young stars that have contributed to the success of this program. So, with that in mind, gentlemen, who is slated to become the most impactful player for Purdue in this important Sweet 16 showdown, and why so?
Well, Jeremy, I'm going to have to say it's going to be Fletcher Lawyer. He's their 3rd leading scorer. He's the 3rd guy on their team that averages 30 minutes per game. And the reason I say so is because he's a 3-point sniper. He is a specialist from 3. You see so far this season, he's averaging around 44% from the 3-point line. But the big thing about Houston is that they're top 5 in opponent field goal and opponent 2-point, but they're top 25 in opponent 3-point percentage. So that's where I think they could potentially get a little bit caught up with Purdue. Fletcher Lawyer's been having a couple shaky games. He's 3 for 14 in the last 3 games, so around 21%. And so he really needs to heat it up if this Purdue team wants to have a shot to knock off the 1-seeded Cougars.
Yeah, definitely a tough team for sure. They're really going to have to step it up, especially that player for sure. What do you say, Chance?
Well, I'm going to take the easy answer. You left their top scorer for me, Trey Kaufman-Renn. He's their leading scorer, second in the Big Ten, just over 20 points a game. He's shooting 60% total, 42% from 3. All around great shooter, great player. He can get it done just about anywhere. But the one thing I will say about Purdue is they're very reliant on star power. We've talked about their top 3 scorers. They're the only 3 that are averaging double digits points per game. The rest of them are all under 6.5 or lower. So there's a big discrepancy between their top shooters and some of their guys coming off the bench. So I think they really need to step up all around and how they're playing the game overall. Yeah, I think that's all I got for you.
Yeah, definitely Purdue. Like I said, they were runner-up in the national championship last year. So some new players coming in, some returning. They're looking for some big-time redemption in March Madness for sure. Well, that's just one side of the story. Let's take a look at their opponent. New conference, no problem. That's been the season for the Houston Cougars in a nutshell. Add a Big 12 tournament championship to their 3rd straight season as a number 1 seed, and this group looks like they can do it all. In their previous brawl with the 8-seed Gonzaga Bulldogs, the senior L.J. Cryer was on fire with 34 points from that night, along with sharpshooters such as Jaywan Roberts, Emmanuel Sharp, and Joseph Tugler also scoring in the double digits. So, without a doubt, L.J. Cryer has become sort of like the conductor of this Cougar offense. But what about the other guys? I'll take it a chance first this time. Who would you say is going to have to step up to make this offense go against the Boilermakers?
I mean, you talked about L.J. Cryer. He's 3rd leading scorer, 15 points a game. He dropped 30 against Gonzaga. I think it's really interesting that Houston earned their 1 seed, such a dominant season, and now they're playing an hour from Purdue's campus. They're 40 minutes away, I believe, 40 miles, something like that. They're solid all around. They have 4 guys that are averaging double digits and another 4 players that are in between 5 and 10. So they're all around solid. They're not as reliant on star power as Purdue, and I think that really benefits them. The Cougars are 6-3 against ranked opponents this season. Purdue is 4-7 against ranked opponents. Big discrepancy there. But I really want to see Jaywan Roberts step up. He's averaging about 11 points per game this season. He had a great game against Gonzaga. He dropped 18, but the last 4 before that were 6, 2, 11, and 6. So a little bit of inconsistency. I want to see him step up, back up that really solid performance, and find just a little more heat throughout the game.
Yeah, those numbers are pretty impressive against an 8-seed Gonzaga, and he's looking to repeat that or even improve on that in the Sweet 16. What do you say, Nick?
I agree with that, but once again, for some reason, I always ended up choosing the third point leader for each team. I'm going to go with Milos Uzan. I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. He is a guard for this Houston Cougars team. He averages around 11. But what I want to focus on with him is he averages 4.4 assists per game. So this man is really dishing out the basketball in their hard-fought battle against the Zags last round. He had 8 assists. So he's really going to be a key factor in making sure that ball movement continues going and keeps the Purdue defense on their toes.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting matchup without a doubt. Another team, 2 other teams in the Midwest region. Number 4 Purdue, number 1 Houston. Tune in. You're not going to want to miss it. Now switching over to the Southeastern Conference, Tennessee and Kentucky are just 2 of 7 SEC schools that have qualified for the Sweet 16, which is a conference record for the round of the NCAA tournament. This SEC regular season champion Auburn Tigers and the SEC tournament champion Florida Gators have more than proven that they are deserving of being a 1 seed with grit and their determination to win. The Alabama Crimson Tide and the Ole Miss Rebels also continue to turn heads by edging out their previous competitors by double digits. But the biggest story in the SEC at the moment might be the Arkansas Razorbacks. It doesn't matter if they're a 10 seed, first-year coach John Calipari has given this squad a championship mentality, and they will be a force to be reckoned with in the Sweet 16. So, all these remaining SEC teams have their eyes set on the final prize in San Antonio, Texas. However, as we know, especially in basketball, the Cinderella magic can only last for so long. So, with that being said, toss it back to Nick this time. Who is your contender and pretender for this group of Southeastern squads?
For pretender, I'm going to have to go with the Alabama Crimson Tide. They've looked very rough as of late, and their path includes getting through the Duke Blue Devils, who have been blowing everybody out. Even if Duke fails to win against Arizona, I feel like Arizona has a strong chance to beat Bama as well. I feel like those matchups really don't favor Bama at all. However, their matchup against BYU really goes their way because they play a similar style of offense. For my contender, I'm going to have to go with the Auburn Tigers. I feel like they have the easiest path to the Final Four out of any of the SEC teams remaining. They have to play a turnover-riddled Michigan team who's kept it up as of late, but that problem still lingers there in the back of their minds. And then they'd have to play the winner of Ole Miss, who they've swept. They're 3-0 against them this year, or Michigan State. And the fact for Michigan State that I have is that no team that has been a top 2 seed that did not start the season ranked has ever made the Final Four. So history is against Michigan State making it to the Final Four. So give me Auburn as a contender for this year's national championship.
Yeah, I'll definitely say a previous point that you have mentioned, Auburn beating Ole Miss 3 times this year, twice in the regular season and once again in the SEC Tournament Championship. Now, if they've beaten the same team 3 times, you would say that it's pretty easy to beat them a 4th time. Well, it is March Madness for a reason, so we can definitely see some different outcomes in this part of the Sweet 16. But what do you say, Chance, contender and pretender?
Well, I don't know. Looking at some of the games this weekend, I don't know if there's a lot of room for contenders or pretenders. I feel like it's very much kind of split in half. None of the games the odds are really favored towards the top seed. Most of the games, the closest is to Michigan State over Ole Miss. That's only 3.5. That's a 1-possession game just about. And Tom Izzo, one of the greatest basketball coaches in the college world ever, he's 10-5 in the Sweet 16. That's a record that's going to be tough to beat. I mean, I'll be interested to see how Ole Miss does. They've had their fair share of upsets. They've been able to hang with some of the tough teams, especially in this conference. And Arkansas, we talked about them a little bit. I could go either way. They're a toss-up to me. They finished 7th in the conference in the regular season. Not a great start, but they've been firing on all cylinders recently. So I don't know. It's tough to say. I had them beating Kansas. Kansas had been struggling this year. I figured Arkansas was an easy win for them. I didn't expect them to beat St. John's, but that was just an implosion for them. So I'm really curious to see how much further their Cinderella story can run, but easy contender, you have to say Florida. What they're doing over there is incredible. Clayton Jr., even when they're struggling, he just finds a way to put the team on his back and make shots, make things happen. So Florida's my contender. I don't really have a pretender. I feel like there's not a lot of teams that could make it further than they've been projected to make it.
Yeah, I did just want to say, going back to Arkansas, like we said, they have had a phenomenal turnaround, I want to say, just bringing in John Calipari in only his first year. And I also want to mention earlier in the season, they were 11-7. They started 11-7, 0-5 in SEC conference play. Also had double-digit losses in the conference, but that didn't stop them from having this successful run so far in the NCAA tournament. So who knows who is going to make it on to the March Madness bracket out of this group of SEC teams. But on that note, here comes the difficult part. We have 16 phenomenal college basketball teams remaining, but only half of them can advance. With that being said, it's time to pick them. Let's go ahead and start off with the West Division. All these games being played in San Francisco. Also, sorry for the voice crack if you heard that. Number 4 Maryland versus number 1 Florida. We'll start off with Nick. Let's see how this goes.
As much as it pains me to say it, I'm going to have to go with the Gators. Maryland was hanging on there against Colorado State, gave up a really late 3. Fortunate Derek Queen, I believe is the name, had a great shot, game winner. First one of March so far. They needed that to win that game. They were not winning that game without that incredible performance and great shot there at the end. I think the Gators, a little bit of a slow game in their last time out, but Walter Clayton Jr., as you said, Chance, he's a phenomenal player. He's going to be going even when the rest of the team isn't. I think the rest of the team's going to step up against Maryland.
Who do you say, Maryland or Florida?
I have to agree. It's Florida. To me, they're probably my pick to win the national championship. I think they're the most all-around complete team that we're seeing in this tournament week in, week out. You know, even when they're struggling, their star player finds a way to make things happen and win games, so I'm going to pick the Gators.
Good picks for sure. Now we are going to toss this to our wonderful Sophie Stockery and everybody's favorite Luke Duo for their picks. What do you say, Maryland or Florida? Who do you got?
Who do you got, Luke? Let's go. Let's take a look at it. I mean, you got Maryland versus Florida. I don't think the Terrapins have a shot. I think you got to go Florida.
You know, as much as I agree with you in that case, Jackson Schock would love me to say Maryland here, and he was trying to convince me before the show. But I don't think I can go against Florida in this one. I'm taking the Gators.
I do like the turtle though. He gives me a nice
he's
little.
a great
he gives me a
mascot.
cute vibe. I like that.
Well, Jeremy,
Not
I think
that
it's going to be
mascots.
a unanimous Florida from us here at the desk.
Not that. It's a pretty good choice here. Florida Gators, they have been looking strong, especially in the SEC tournament, and continuing it on in the March Madness tournament. Moving on to our next opponents in the Western Division. Oh boy. This is going to be a doozy right here. Number 10, Arkansas against number 3, Texas Tech. We've talked about the Cinderella story. Who do you have?
I'm going to say this is going to be the end of John Calipari's run in his first season at Arkansas. I've been a Texas Tech fan all season. I don't know. It's something about it. Their offense is so much fun to watch. JT Toppin has been electric so far for them this season. Give me the Red Raiders.
I'm going to have to disagree. I think Texas Tech has been really solid this year. I think they're one of the more complete teams throughout the teams that are remaining. But Arkansas has just been lighting the world on fire. I think they're the most likely team to upset or to pull an upset this weekend, so give me the Razorbacks.
The people at the desk are definitely antsy to get their picks in. So what do you say, Texas Tech or Arkansas? What do you got?
Got a little ahead of you there, guys. Apologize. But look, I think you continue the Cinderella story. I mean, Arkansas, they've got some power behind them. We played them. We beat them. But they've got some real hot, red-hot vibes coming off them. I like Arkansas here.
I'm right there with you. The depth on that team concerns me a little bit with how many guys they have that aren't playing. But Boogie Flan's back. I think this Arkansas team's going to make a run.
I'm going to counter you guys here. I think the Cinderella story can only last so long. Upsets can only get you so far, and skill's going to come into play. I'm going to take Texas Tech here.
Well, that is it for the West Division. Let's move on down to the South. You have in Atlanta, number 6 Ole Miss versus number 2 Michigan State.
Mr. March, Tom Izzo, Michigan State, not much more than needs to be said. Chance made a really good point earlier.
Yeah, ditto. Michigan State. Tom Izzo, 10-5, Sweet 16. You can't beat that.
Let's send it back to the desk for their picks.
Well, you know, I'm going to play devil's advocate again. I played it earlier. We're going to play it again. I like Auburn here. They're a powerful SEC team.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. What am I saying? What am I saying? Goodness gracious. You know what? Let's go Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss all the way.
Again, I'm right there with you. I think Michigan State was lucky to win their last game. I like the Ole Miss Rebels in this one. I think they're a good team, and I think they're going to take down Tom Izzo.
Once again, I'm going to go against the Lukes here. I think Michigan State might come through during this game.
Oh, all right. Speaking of which, we're going from one Michigan team to another. The number 5 Michigan Wolverines against number 1 Auburn. This is going to be a doozy.
Like I said earlier, Auburn's my contender. Hard to root against them. Number 1 overall seed. Struggled a little bit as of late, but I still see they find a way to beat Michigan.
I think it's got to be Auburn. Michigan was not great last year. Now they're, Sweet 16 this year. I think the lights are going to be too bright for that young Michigan team.
Speaking of which, the lights are looking pretty bright over here, but we are still rolling. Let's go to the other side of the bracket, the East Division. These games in – oh, wait. I just forgot. We got people on the desk over here. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Hey, we got something to say
Ease
about
off that saddle, cowboy. All right. Hey, look.
Auburn, Michigan.
Auburn, Michigan. See, this is where I got it confused. There's, 2 Michigans in the tournament. But look, Auburn versus Michigan. I got Auburn here because, in all honesty, Auburn's a great SEC team. They've been really powerful this year. I'm going to stop talking now, but I like Auburn here.
Again, I'm with you. I think Auburn's the best team in the tournament, and for my taste, I think they take this one handedly.
Absolutely. After watching Tennessee play Auburn, and it was a hard loss for us, this team is going to be really hard to take down. I think it's going to be unanimous from us. Auburn takes the cake.
Well, that's it for the first side of the bracket, so I'm good to move on? Okay, so good. So we're now moving on to Newark, New Jersey, number 6 BYU, and number 2 Alabama in the East Division.
I feel like BYU just plays too much of like Alabama, but to a lesser degree. Give me the Crimson Tide, just too much offense. They're going to overpower them.
Yeah, I have to agree. I was looking at the stats, trying to make my pick. I really wanted to pick BYU, but I had to take the Crimson Tide. They're the second offense in the country. BYU is 128th ranked defensively. I think that's just super lopsided. Give me the Crimson Tide.
All right, who do you have, Sophie and Luke's, BYU or Alabama?
Here we come. We're coming up here. Gotta go with Alabama. I really like their power, their mystique. I mean, Mark Seals has just been absolutely phenomenal this year. I really, really like watching them play as much as, sometimes people around here don't like them. They're a really powerful team, Alabama here.
You must have looked at my bracket because we have literally all the same picks.
Wow.
Frankly, I think Mark Sears could take on BYU by himself and still win, but give me the Crimson Tide.
I'm not sure it's just your bracket there, Luke. I think Alabama has a really high-scoring offense, and it would kind of be silly not to take them in this matchup, so give me Alabama as well.
Alabama for a lot of picks. So now we're going to move on to number 4 Arizona and number 1 Duke.
Luke Attal said Auburn was who he thought top seeded, his most overall team. I'm going to say Duke. I think Duke's the best team in this tournament. I think they have the best chance to win the national championship. Give me the Blue Devils.
This might be a really hot take here, but I'm going to take Arizona. Duke has played one ranked opponent since December 4th, and that was Louisville in their conference tournament. I think, not to discredit Duke's insane offense, they're just laying on, never taking their foot off the gas. But I think now that they're starting to find some competition that's, ranked, they're good teams, really solid teams, I think they might run into a bit of a wall. So I'm going to take the Arizona Wildcats.
Right back to the desk, Arizona or Duke?
Chance getting a little gutsy there. I like it. I like it from Chance. I'm going to go with Duke, though. I like what Chance is saying, but I'm going to tell you, this is a really well-rounded Duke team. Even since Coach K left 3 years ago, we haven't really seen a team with this much depth. I like you, Cooper Flagg. I mean, like Mark Sears, I think he could take him on by himself. He is an absolute beast. I'm going to go with Duke here.
Yeah, you mentioned Duke, really deep team and a likable Duke team this year. That's not something you always see from Duke, but I feel like this Duke team has been very likable this season. Like you mentioned, Cooper Flagg. I think Duke takes this one as well pretty handedly.
Yeah. Cannot deny Duke's good at basketball. As much as people can hate them, we've got some great players on this team. Going to be really hard to beat. Got Duke as well.
All right, don't you guys worry. We are almost done here. We are now at the Midwest Division, the biggin, as you would say. Number 4, Purdue, taking on number 1, Houston. This is going to be a big one.
I hate to go full chalk, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to do it. I think Houston's just going to be too much. Purdue's defense coming into the tournament was a huge concern. They've upped that so far this tournament. I think Houston exposes that. Give me the Cougars.
I have to agree. I think it's Houston. We talked about they're not relying on star power like Purdue is, so if you can lock down their stars, Houston's a great team defensively. I think they have a really great chance to just push Purdue out of the way.
Luke and Sophie, who do you have?
We really, well, I'm not speaking for we, but I like Houston here. I think they've got really the most depth and the really most power. Houston here.
I don't know about most depth in the tournament. I think Houston's the most overrated
I didn't say that.
I do think they're going to win this matchup. Houston is going to be Purdue.
I know this is going to be so shocking to hear, but I'm also going to pick Houston, and that's it from us here at the
We like
desk.
a green here. We like a green here.
Absolutely. Back to you, Jeremy.
The grand finale for all the marbles. Number 3, Kentucky Wildcats, and the number 2, Tennessee Volunteers. Who do you got, Nick?
There's no way Kentucky shoots 50% from 3 again. We're in an NFL stadium, much different depth perception, usually tends to lead to a lot worse shooting. Give me the Vols in a defensive battle.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tennessee Volunteers. If the Tennessee Volunteers had shot their season average threes in both of those games, they would have won both of them. You can't, 50% from 3 is not sustainable. Give me the Vols.
All right. Luke's, Sophie, Kentucky, or Tennessee?
You can't get rid of us just yet, Jeremy. Look, let me tell you, as much as I was, on the other side of the Tennessee game earlier in this show, I think that Tennessee's going to have it here. I don't think Kentucky. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to tell you it's going to be close, but I think Tennessee's got it here.
It's hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. I'm taking the Vols in this one as well.
Not only is it hard to beat a team 3 times 1 year, it's hard to beat Rick Barnes in the NCAA tournament here, so all 3 of us are going to pick Vols.
Great picks from everybody all around, and thank you as well, Luke L., Luke A., and Sophie S. for joining us in our picks. That'll wrap up your preview of the Sweet 16 and all that's happening around the world of men's college basketball. For Chance and Nick, we say have a fantastic weekend and enjoy the remaining madness of March.
My name is Jack Glenn, and I am with the Volunteer Channel, and today I am joined by a very special guest, the voice of the Vols, Mr. Bob Kessling. How are we doing, Mr.
I'm great, Jack. Good to be with you.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself for the viewers. What have you been doing for Tennessee for the last 26 years?
Well, I've been the lead announcer on the Vol Network, and that means do the play-by-play for football and basketball on the Vol Network, our 70-some stations we do across the state.
You mentioned John Ward in the process of becoming a broadcaster, learning from him. Take me through a little bit what you learned from him, how it was kind of learning from him, and if there was any pressure filling in for him after he retired.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of pressure. I mean, because John was such a legend and was such a great broadcaster. You know, John was a lawyer. I mean, he got his law degree, but he never practiced law. But he approached every broadcast like he was going into a courtroom, like his Law and Order. I mean, he had typewritten notes, maybe 25, 30 pages, every game on a clipboard. He might use 10 or 20% of it, but that just shows you how much preparation work he did. And he would let you make one mistake, but you can't make the same mistake twice.
You know, you and I have also talked about in the past broadcasters being storytellers. Can you elaborate for the audience a little bit on what you meant by a broadcaster being a storyteller?
Well, I think that you're marketing, like when I'm doing the games on the Vol Network, I'm marketing Tennessee. I'm trying to sell Tennessee to the people that are listening and following the program. but you've got to also make it interesting.
Yeah, you've often discussed the fact that a young aspiring broadcaster might get 1 or 2 breaks in this industry. What steps can an aspiring broadcaster take to make the most of those breaks?
I think the most important thing that you have to do is get up every morning and be motivated to get better. I think that you've got to get up every morning. If it doesn't excite you to get out of bed to want to work on
Cut it. JP, we're so back. 1 year later, we're so back. How have you been?
Been great. You?
I've been chilling. How's class going?
It's been classing.
How's ball going?
It's been balling.
It's been balling. Not much balling from you, though.
Not much balling from me. I've been spectating a lot.
Yeah, so obviously some things have changed since we last spoke. Got you a little bit of a foot problem. How have you handled that?
I think I've handled it pretty good. Obviously, the first, when it happened, it kind of sucked hearing that news, but I mean, I've kind of like adjusted to my new role now, I guess you could say, as like, I'm still a player, but I kind of get like a little bit of a coach's perspective at the same time, so I kind of get to like give feedback to my teammates.
We've kept yourself busy with the podcast. Tell me about the podcast. I've been listening.
Yeah, High Volume, my podcast, started about, I don't know, it feels like a million years ago. My teammates sometimes don't like to hop on the podcast because they don't like me anymore. Yeah, no. Some of them just decide not to hop on.
Okay, I gotta know. Dream guest on the podcast.
Dream guest. I want to have Giannis on my podcast.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think Giannis would be a good one because he's like he's a very humorous guy. I feel
He
like that'd
is.
be great.
What have you been doing to pass the time while you've been kind of down and out?
I've been lifting a lot. I've been doing a lot of form shots, and then outside of basketball, yeah, like you said, a lot of video games, and really just hanging out with my buddies.
So I've heard that you're a master chef. In fact, the best omelet chef on the team. That's crazy. Is there a key to your recipe?
No, I'm just really good at cooking omelets.
I'm thinking you should release a cookbook.
A cookbook?
I'm thinking you should go for it. Have you ever thought about it?
I think my grilled cheese recipe would be great. My omelet recipe would be like on the Bobby Flay Diner Drive-Ins and Dives.
Let's beat Bobby Flay.
Beat Bobby Flay, yeah, beat Bobby Flay. I would be on that, I'd beat him. And my ramen, did I say ramen or did I say?
Yeah, you said ramen.
Ramen, omelet, and
That's 3.
ramen, omelet, grilled cheese.
What do you think your joy brings to this team?
I feel like it's kind of like contagious. Obviously, there's some days where our team is a little down, like after maybe a loss or something or rough practice, and obviously I'm fully energetic because I'm not really doing much. So I'll go in the locker room, make sure everyone has a smile on their face, make sure everyone's, even if it's a rough day, you gotta make sure everyone's spirits are uplifted and everyone's just in a good mood so that we can just continue on and just figure it out.
Okay, I got some rapid fire. You ready?
I'm ready.
Of your favorites.
Okay, I'm ready.
Favorite color?
Black or red?
Favorite song at the moment?
Can I do artists?
Artists, go.
Rilo, Lil TJ, and Drake. Those are my 3 favorites right now.
So what do you think about the Kendrick Lamar beef?
I don't like Kendrick. I hope Shaq sees this. I really don't like Kendrick Lamar at all.
Shaq is definitely gonna see this.
Shaq loves Kendrick. I don't like Kendrick, so.
Favorite food?
Lobster.
Favorite NBA player?
Either Giannis or Lauri Markkanen right now.
Oh, good one. Popsicle flavor?
Blue raspberry or watermelon.
Fast food?
This is tough. Popeyes right now.
What?
Popeyes, yeah. Since being in the South, Popeyes.
Okay, favorite season?
Seasoning?
Season.
Oh, season?
A seasoning if you want.
I don't even know any seasonings. That's why I was like salt and pepper.
It's like that pepper, salt?
Yeah, salt, pepper.
Salt or pepper?
It depends on what I'm making. If I'm making omelets, pepper. Okay. But season would be winter.
Favorite candy?
Like the sour double snakes, the dual snakes?
The different colors?
Yeah, and they're like one sour, one sweet.
Yeah.
Those are my favorites.
That's a good one. Which color? Like color combo?
I'll go the green and yellow mix and match ones.
What? No, blue and red. Blue and red. Favorite TV show?
I don't watch TV.
Huh? You're an interesting guy.
I don't really watch TV. I actually just talked about this on the podcast when I did film the other day. I don't like TV or movies that much. Like, I really don't be watching it. Like I watch like ESPN and stuff, but other than that, like not a big TV movie guy. Like half the shows, if you were to name something right now, I'd probably watch.
Do you do any YouTube?
I do watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of Rust videos on YouTube. I love Rust. I love Rust.
Favorite memory so far at UT?
Being SEC regular season champs last year, or being in the Elite Eight.
Well, JP, it's always a pleasure. We got to run it back again next year. We'll try to do it next year.
We will.
Is next season going to be your revenge arc?
I'm going to be devious timing.
Devious timing.
Devious timing.
We can't wait to see it.
Welcome back to Torch Sports, and here to bring it to Birmingham for the women's side of things, I'm Alexi Cowan, alongside Miss Alexis Ruma, Lauren Gimpler, and the ladies' man himself, Alex Carpenter. Alex, how do you feel being surrounded by all these women, talking about the women's tournament, Women's Month?
I just feel empowerment at this table right now. You know, I'm happy to be here with a great crew today.
God bless
That's why
you.
we love you, Alex.
For sure. Now, after ending the regular season with 2 losses to Kentucky and Georgia, and getting kicked out of the SEC tournament by Vanderbilt, there had been kind of a deflation of confidence in Kim Caldwell and this Lady Vols team. But they've proven resilient in March Madness and are headed to the Sweet 16 in Birmingham after whooping 12 seed South Florida 101-66 and then 4 seed Ohio State 82-67. South Florida was more of a blowout, but let's look back on Sunday against Ohio State on their home court. Something was clicking here that wasn't clicking before. Zach Pelfrey and Patrick Falcon are at the board to give us a recap.
Yeah, thank you, Alexi. One of the things that was clicking for the Lady Vols was their three-point percentage. Now, earlier in the season, we saw them score, 33s in one game, so it's not surprising that we finally see this offensive success start to click. As you can see in some of these clips, it's about just taking the threes. Tennessee is able to make the tough threes, and they do it with ease. Now, that's a Kim Caldwell offense if I've ever seen one before. Again, nothing here but defense. Defense knocking the ball away, getting it, and another transition 3, knocking it down.
It's kind of what we saw from Kentucky earlier. We penetrate a little bit. Once we see them take that hedge step, immediately kicking it back out. And these threes aren't wide open. They're contested, but it doesn't matter. We're taking them anyways, and we're making them at a high rate, and that's what Kim Caldwell's done anywhere she's been.
As you can see right here, another contested 3. They're not afraid to take the threes, and they're also not afraid to sub out their entire team if they are not playing great. Tennessee has very efficient three-point shooters, and it shows in every game, especially against 4th-ranked Ohio State. Even on their home court, we're still taking step-back threes in their face.
And that finesse will, the way we play with that finesse, that depth will help us, and it'll help us run Texas out of the building because they play with a little more power and a little more slow. So to see if they can keep up with those wholesale subs and that pace we play at will be an interesting thing to see in this game.
Yeah, back to you, Alexi.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, aside from those threes, you see the finesse. What was working for the Lady Vols in Columbus?
I mean, it starts with Kim Caldwell's style of play. You look at the turnovers that this Lady Vol team was able to produce in their first 2 games of the tournament. They had 24 turnovers, or forced 24 turnovers against South Florida and 23 against Ohio State. That is exactly the kind of chaos that Kim Caldwell likes her teams to create, and it causes even stronger teams and maybe more talented teams than the Lady Vols are to, sweat a little bit and get confused. And that's just a testament to the good coaching that we've seen so far this season from this Lady Vol team.
And you mentioned those turnovers. Yes, we forced 23 turnovers in the game versus Ohio State. We capitalized on that, gaining 37 points.
Wow, Atlanta.
Wow.
Also, speaking of defense, our defensive pressure was definitely a big factor of this game. We saw 7 steals from Talaysia Cooper and an additional 3 from Whitehorn. Now, you mentioned in the beginning resilience. Columbus was loud. There were a lot of people came out, and they were not there for the Vols. They were there for Ohio State. And after the game, Spearman mentioned how loud the stadium was and how the team was able to stay together and stay calm. So obviously, definitely worked for the Lady Vols, and again, shows the coaching, shows how they're able to stay mentally strong in tough environments.
Going back to this Kim Caldwell style basketball that we're playing, you look at this roster and the depth, we have 10, 11 players subbing in for these games. I don't think Ohio State or South Florida was prepared for that. They're playing 7, maybe 8 players in a game. We've got 10, 11 coming in. There's constantly someone who's going to be fresh, and that's how we're able to play that 4th quarter with that level of grittiness and that aggressiveness, and that's how we were able to pull off that win, especially against Ohio State.
Yeah, and you saw we had 4 players in both tournament games so far with double-digit points. So.
And just to add on to that, we were only up by 1 point, or the Lady Vols were only up by 1 point against South Florida after the first quarter. The second quarter, they jumped to a 20-point lead at halftime, and that was just that's how the game went. They wear you down. It's not a knockout style of play. It's a slowly chip away at the teams that you're playing, and that's how you're able to beat teams that are maybe more talented.
We're like that little sister that just keeps egging you on, and finally you give up, you know. So I'm hoping that we can keep continuing in that. But I mean, there's also places where I feel like we were lacking. Did you all notice any areas where we were lacking in this first weekend that needs to be changed?
Definitely. So when talking about where the Lady Vols were lacking, I want to point out the three-point shooting. The Lady Vols were 29.4% from three. While that is not necessarily terrible, if you look back at the first game versus South Florida, they shot 43%. Now,
my goodness.
I know, obviously, Ohio State, more talented team, but I think it just shows a testament that, the Lady Vols are able to have stronger than 29% versus these teams. And, I mean, they made 16 threes in the first game. I think they lacked a little bit of that in the second game.
The issue with this Lady Vols team all season long has been consistency. It's been being able to close out a close game
We've talked
late.
a lot
and
about
we've
that on this
talked
show.
ad nauseum about that here at Torch Sports. But my point that I want to make is at one point in the third quarter against Ohio State, we were up by 17 points. So it felt like we had the game put away, and then all of a sudden it's a tie game going into the fourth quarter. It was an unreal experience watching the Lady Vols at some points almost try to throw the game away, but they were able to rebound and battle back with great adversity, and they can't do that against Texas.
No.
It's kind of familiar story, though. Lots of emotions on watching Tennessee back and forth.
Yes. You talk inconsistency. Looking at March, Lady Vols are consistently having these slow starts. The first few minutes of the game at 16-5 Ohio State. That was not something that the Lady Vols were doing early on this season, and I don't know where it's come from and what's going on, but if we want to advance to the Elite Eight, you cannot come out and have a slow start. You have to come out aggressive and play the full 40 minutes. I think that is an area where they lack. It's a 40-minute game, and you have to be in it the entire time if you want to go far.
And we talked about turnovers in what worked for Ohio State, and that was forcing turnovers. But also, the Vols, they had 14 turnovers themselves, and that gave Ohio State 15 points. So at times, we're doing well, and then we just kind of lose it and then pick back up. But as we go further in the tournament, we won't be able to just capitalize again right off the bat.
You can't make those mistakes against Texas coming up. That's the end of the story.
Every single digit is going to matter when it comes to Texas. And, we'll get to that slow start in just a minute. I want to talk about that because I noticed that. But this Saturday at 3:30 p.m., the Lady Vols will take on the #1 Texas Longhorns in Birmingham. Now, when they played each other in January, Texas took the win by just 4 points. And keep in mind, this is the game that Coach Caldwell was away giving birth. But no head coach and only lost by 4. That's a good deal. Going back to Zach and Pat, guys, why is this team so intimidating?
Sorry, excuse me. We're going to go over Texas play style here, and what they like to do is they like to play physical. Oh, a little Lamry shake there, I like that. But they like to play inside to out. They don't take a lot of threes. They love this action here, this little dribble handoff, and then off-ball screens, come around, little curl shooter. That's Madison Booker. They are not afraid to take mid-range shots, and they do it a lot. We see her again, Shea Holly, come around, maybe a little bit of a legal screen, but for another mid-range shot. And then they also play physical. The Lady Vols are going to have to match that physicality. We know they can run with them in transition, and Texas is good at that too. We see here she finished over 2 people, but the physicality is what we need here. We see it again on the inbound play. 2 screens with the curl around for Shea Holly again. That's an easy mid-range bucket. This team does not take a lot of threes.
One of the things that we're seeing is that these matchups are going to be 2 very different styles of play. Tennessee, very on the perimeter, very shooting threes. Texas, very down low, very physical, very gritty. It's a very interesting matchup we got here.
It's almost like a dichotomy between the 2 teams. It's almost like they're polar opposites in that way. And, of course, we're going to have to stop Roy Harmon, the Wooden Word contender, the star guard for Texas. And then I think the key is just play physical. You have to get around those screens. You have to stop those curls. And you have to be in their faces because they are cash from mid-range. Force them to take those ad-side shots. Maybe even leave them open a little bit because they're not as efficient as taking them, especially as we are. If we get into a three-point battle with Texas, I'll take the Lady Vols any day.
Physicality. That's the #1 key in this game. Back to you guys.
Yeah, you talk about physicality. Now, when you are slow as Christmas in the first quarter, what do you do to beat a #1 team in a win-or-go-home tournament here?
The strategy for the Lady Vols for this upcoming tournament game is going to be to create chaos. You're going to have to feed the floor, as DJ Sterl the Pearl likes to say for the games in Thompson Bowling Arena.
Can you give me your best DJ Sterl impression?
Who wants a t-shirt? Who wants a t-shirt? That's, I swear, it's the best thing. Love you, DJ Sterl. But you have to contain Madison Booker. She averages 16 points a game. She is the #1 scoring threat for these Longhorns. She hit the game winner on the Lady Vols the last time they met without Coach Kim Caldwell, and she had 26 points in that game. She knows how to play, and she played 35 minutes in that last outing against the Lady Vols, so she's able to handle the constant pressure without having to go out. I just feel like for this game to go the Lady Vols' way, they're going to have to create chaos. They're going to have to find a way to get Texas off of their game because they like the mid-range shot, like they mentioned at the board, and they don't like to shoot a lot of threes.
No. And I'm going to go off of you when you say they need to bring chaos. They need to attack in the paint. When you look at Texas in their first-round game versus William & Mary, they shot for 56 points in the paint. Now, that is a lot. The Lady Vols need to clog the lane.
Lady Vols don't do that.
No. They need to clog the lane, and they need to cause Texas to get in foul trouble early, and that can be a serious game changer.
You know, I always say, you get 5 fouls. You might as well just knock some people out while you can. You know, you get 5.
And do you know how many three-pointers that Texas took against Illinois? Zero. They shot 0 three-pointers. They didn't make 0. They shot 7. They made 0. They know that they don't need the three-point shot because they can dominate you inside, and that's proven because they out-rebounded the Lady Vols by 15 boards the last time they met in Austin.
And Tennessee relies way too much on the 3-ball, both men's and women's. And when it's not working, you got to go somewhere else. My goodness.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to say we're going to have to go in with what we practice with our style. Be aggressive and be physical the second the clock starts. We cannot hold back. We cannot wait. Yes, we were aggressive that last quarter against Ohio State. We're on the ground trying to get these balls, jump balls, all the things. Why can't we play like that from the start? From the jump, that's what they practice, that's what they know. I think if they can come out and start strong, now Texas has proven they can come from behind. So it's like we were saying, they're going to have to be consistent all 40 minutes, but you got to start fast if you want any chance of beating this Texas team.
Now, let's talk about the slow starts.
Yes.
I don't get it. So the last 2 games, we were just poking down the floor. And then at one point we were down, it was either, I forget which round it was, we were down by 9. And I was like, come on. What's going to happen if we start doing this, walking down the floor at Texas?
We got down, or the Lady Vols were down by 11 points at one point in the first quarter before they turned it on and were able to battle back against Ohio State. If you have that kind of performance against Texas, it will not be pretty. Yes, we've seen the Lady Vols battle back at multiple times in multiple games this season, but not against this Texas team and not in this moment. It takes a lot to beat a 1 seed in the ladies tournament, and for the Lady Vols to do that, they're going to have to be perfect.
Now, I'm going to go off. You were saying that the Vols, both men's and women's, rely on the 3 too much. I'm going to say, maybe contradict a little bit, that
contradicting me?
A little bit, in terms that I think the Lady Vols need to rely more on the 3s.
Oh my goodness.
Let's look at this. The Lady Vols made some records in the South Florida game.
Yeah.
8 different players made at least 1 3. There were 16 threes made, and that was a new school record for an NCAA tournament game. And Tennessee ended that game with 328 total threes made, and that is a new SEC single-season record. So they've proven that they are able to do it. But I do agree with you that if it's not working from the start, to not solely rely on it. But I
Okay.
think if they come out confident and know their ability, I think they should at least start.
My question
Okay.
would be, if it's not from the three-point line, where will the Lady Vols get the majority of their
That's
points?
true. That's true.
Well, the rebounding is where we really have lacked and struggled. Like you mentioned, when the Lady Vols took on Texas in January, we were out rebounded 39-24. But then against Ohio State, we have 23 turnovers, which are converted to 37 points. So if they can go out and get those rebounds and then come and make a basket. And this week in practice, Kim Caldwell has had rebound posters all over Food City Center. She has preached rebounding all tournament, all season with this team. And I think if they can go out and rebound in the first quarter. Against Ohio State, we were not rebounding in the first quarter. I want to say we had 2 defensive rebounds.
It's good that the coaching staff is honing in on that.
Now, last thing here, Texas, they're great. But do you see any inconsistencies that we can bank off of?
To be quite honest, not
That
a
was
lot.
quiet.
I know.
Okay.
There was the pause on the desk because all of us here understand that this is a 1 seed. This is a team that made it to the SEC Tournament Championship, played against South Carolina, did not win. They've played South Carolina 3 times. They beat them once. And you know that if you beat South Carolina, you are a top team in the country because that team is honestly, they're my pick to win the national championship on the women's side. I'll put that out there. The inconsistencies in Texas, it's going to be their rotation. It's going to be the amount of depth that their team has. They like to play 7 people, but that's because they have 7 people who are absolutely fantastic. So,
but not every day.
Not every day.
Yep.
And on any given day, anyone can lose. So if I am Kim Caldwell, I'm saying we have to try and find a way to speed this game up, and we cannot play at Texas's level. We can't let them back us down inside and dominate in the paint.
Well, I'm going to go back to the threes, but this time for Texas. We mentioned how Texas was 0-5 versus Illinois at the 3, and they only made 3 in the first round. And that's 3 total through 2 rounds of this tournament. If we clog the lane, force them to go from 3, I think we can see struggles from Texas there.
Alex, you're talking about Texas not having a lot of depth. That's something that Tennessee does have. Again, playing 10, 11 players each game. And again, always fresh, coming in, aggressive, physical, and that's the way they're going to have to play. And Ohio State wasn't prepared for that. They kind of struggled with how much we're subbing in and out, these different players that we have, the depth of this team. I think we've met this Texas team before. They know how we're going to play, but we're going to have to come out fast, and all 11 players that are coming in, they're going to have to be at their best and wear this Texas team down if we want to win.
And it hurts that Texas is coached by one of the best coaches in the game this season, Vic Schaefer, who has proven time and time again that his team deserves to be one of the best in the country. I think I think they've lost 3 times this season, and twice was to South Carolina. So once to Notre Dame earlier on in the non-conference play. It's going to take a lot.
It's going to take everything.
It's going to take our best.
Well, we'll find out what happens on Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Now, follow us on Instagram at Torch Sports UTK to get live updates from Luke Lamory, Holland Hines, and Toby Fagan. You're not going to want to miss that. But from Alexis, Alex, Lauren, and I, best of luck to the Lady Vols from here in Knoxville. Now, we're going to take a look at the other matchups this weekend in the women's tournament. But first, this game could be the last game the Darby sisters share the court together at Tennessee. I know, I love them. I sat down with them the morning of their first season practice this past fall to get a glimpse of what made their dynamic so unique.
You might have heard the phrase, fight like sisters.
I've always been the book smart one. I think Tess can vouch for that one. She's always been the outgoing. She can talk to a brick wall.
But these two are sisters, fighting like sisters towards one goal, a national title.
The sky's the limit for us. We want to go all the way.
Tess and Edie Darby are the first set of sisters on the Lady Vol basketball team. Tess is a grad student entering her last year of eligibility, and Edie is a junior. Born in West Tennessee, about 6 hours from Knoxville, Lady Vol basketball has been a tradition from the start.
Coming home from church on a Sunday afternoon, it was like, who can get to the TV fast enough to turn on a Lady Vols basketball game?
This is a championship set of sisters. They know what it's like to win it all because they won their state championship in high school, but they're ready to do it again.
And I feel like we have worked our butts off this summer trying to prove that we want to be the hardest working team on the country and the hardest playing team on the country.
But this is their last chance to do it together, as this will be Tessa's last year in a Lady Vol jersey.
I'm getting teary-eyed just even thinking that this is my last season. But just trying to enjoy, I mean, who thought I'd be in tears right here at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, start official practice today.
A special season, no matter the outcome, because they will be together, side by side.
Our favorite saying is iron sharpens iron, and I think that speaks volumes just for the both of us and just seeing where we are now.
In Knoxville, Alexi Cowan, Vol News.
Hey everybody, welcome to Around the Bracket. I'm Riley Haltom, joined by Jordan Smitherman, and making her on-camera debut for Torch Sports, Delaney Leary. Now, it has been a fantastic start to the tournament. We've seen the top seeds dominate much like the men's bracket, but unlike the men's tournament, no double-digit seeds remain in the women's bracket. In fact, the lowest seed in the women's Sweet 16 is 5, with one of those 5 seeds being the Tennessee Lady Volunteers. But you've already heard plenty about the Lady Vols in Texas, so let's take a look at some of the other teams left fighting for that elusive Final Four spot. Let's start with what is sadly the biggest story of the women's tournament so far. 1 seed USC dominated the first 2 rounds of the tournament, led by superstar Juju Watkins, where they will meet the 5 seed Kansas State Wildcats in the Sweet 16. Sadly, in the Trojans' round of 32 win over the Mississippi State Bulldogs, Watkins tore her ACL. Jordan, Delaney, how big of an impact does the injury to Watkins have on the rest of this tournament?
I think this just impacts the brand and the momentum that women's basketball has really gotten the past year. I mean, ever since like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, I mean, this was their next star. Like, this was their most marketable product alongside Paige Becker. So I think it just hurts the brand that they've strived so long to get, and that just, it sucks having the stars of your tournament, the stars of your sport out in the biggest tournament. And also, I
think it's an absolute total loss for Southern California. Juju was averaging just under 24 points per game with 42.6% in field goals. That is a huge loss all around for Southern California. But on the plus side, she's only a sophomore, so she does have a couple of years to build back.
Right, and to your point, Jordan, this upcoming matchup, if they had advanced past Kansas State, and then the 2 seed UConn Huskies advanced past the 3 seed Oklahoma Sooners in the Sweet 16, those 2 stars would have met in the Elite 8. So that would have been a fantastic game to market. But
insane ratings.
Yeah, absolutely. But some of the other matchups going on, you had 3 seed Notre Dame and 2 seed TCU in the same side of the bracket as the Lady Vols and Texas. Notre Dame, led by backcourt duo Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo, take on 2 seed TCU, led by Haley Van Lith and Sedona Prince. If the Lady Vols can advance past the Longhorns, who would you rather them face, TCU or Notre Dame? We'll start with Delaney this time.
I've got to go with Notre Dame. Just from a record standpoint, Notre Dame is 26-5 this entire season, and TCU is 31-3. So just coming from the team who has more wins, I would personally I've seen the Lady Vols do incredible things, taking down UConn and many other fantastic programs, but for this specific tournament, I would rather them go against a safe Notre Dame.
See, I think we just got to get past Texas first. Like Alexi and them were saying back at the desk, they're good. They ran through the entire SEC. Madison Booker, SEC Player of the Year. Coach Vic Schaefer, SEC Coach of the Year. They're having the best season they've had in a while, so I think we just need to focus on them. And if we get past that, then we can focus on Notre Dame TCU.
Totally fair. Let's quickly run through some of the other matchups in this bracket. 3 seed LSU and Kim Mulkey take on 2 seed NC State. 1 seed UCLA, who scored exactly 84 points in both rounds 1 and 2, has a matchup with an SEC foe, 5 seed Ole Miss, who has had 2 close games so far. In a matchup between 2 rivals, 2 seed Duke takes on 3 seed North Carolina. That's going to be a fun one for college basketball fans. So let's switch gears a little bit to our final Sweet 16 matchup between 4 seed Maryland and defending 1 seed South Carolina and Dawn Staley. With just 3 losses on the season and the challenge of going back-to-back, can anyone stop this squad? Jordan?
I mean, I don't think they can. I mean, maybe if they run into Texas, it'd be my only guess. But Dawn Staley has that train rolling. It's like a factory down there. She knows what she's doing. They won the championship last year. So, no, I don't think so.
I think Dawn Staley is just one of the most, I would say, iconic coaches in the league right now. She's 3-time Olympic gold medalist, spent 8 seasons in the WNBA. She's just, and defending the national title from last year. And I forget what years they were, but they've won the tournament 3 times. I think it's all going to go to South Carolina.
Totally fair. They've been so dominant. So let's wrap up by looking at the whole bracket. Delaney, let's start with you. What is the most compelling matchup of the Sweet 16 for you?
I'm not going to lie. I'm looking forward to North Carolina versus Duke because their record, it's almost identical. So sorry. UNC only has 1 more win than Duke, and they're tied with losses. So I think that could really be a toss-up for either team.
For sure.
Okay, my most compelling matchup is the Notre Dame TCU matchup you're talking about. In March, you need to have the best guard play, and there's so much elite guard play in this matchup. You have Haley Van Lith, who's having one of the maybe best seasons of her career, versus Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles. Olivia Miles is so experienced as well. She's back fully healthy, has that veteran experience. And then you have Hannah Hidalgo, who is the star point guard that you need to make a run in March Madness.
Yeah, those are a couple of fantastic 2-3 matchups. Let's wrap it up with what your Final Four lineup and national championship pick is. Jordan?
Okay, so my Final Four is South Carolina, Texas, UConn, and LSU. And my winner is going to be UConn because this is Paige Becker's last chance to win a championship. Her resume is like completely perfect except that national championship, and I think she's more motivated than ever. And that squad is the healthiest they've ever been. They always have a star, whether it's Azzi Fudd or Beckers, who are hurt in the postseason, but this year, fully healthy. And UConn has not won a championship since 2016, which is like a lifetime for UConn Huskies fans. So I think it might be their time to like reintroduce themselves. So yeah.
Delaney?
I have almost an exact same for my Final Four, except I have UConn versus UCLA and South Carolina versus Texas. Winning the whole thing, part of me wants to say UConn because I grew up in Hartford County, Connecticut, which is their home. So I've been seeing them do that. I've seen that program do amazing things since I was like 6 years old. It's all people talk about. You can't go into a supermarket, a CVS, even a Whole Foods without seeing a UConn basketball jersey, and in recent years, especially a Paige Becker's jersey. I think she's fantastic. I think the whole entire team is fantastic, but I do think it's going to go to South Carolina.
Totally fair with what Dawn Staley has done. So, switch gears. Our Lexi Cowan had the chance to sit down and talk with Linda Stevens, mother of Tennessee head coach Kim Caldwell. Check it out.
You know her name, you know her records and stats, but do you know where she came from? I got the opportunity to sit down with Linda Stevens, new Lady Vol head coach Kim Caldwell's mother, and chat about this new phase of life for their family.
It's hard to believe that this is really true. It's beyond a dream. Somebody told me this morning, well, this is a dream come true, and I said, I don't even dream this big.
Stevens spoke about how proud her husband Scott would have been of his daughter.
Unbelievable. I can hear him singing Rocky Top from Heaven. I really can.
Scott passed away in November of 2020, losing a 2-month battle with an aggressive brain tumor.
Oh, they had a special, special relationship. Scott would be beside himself if he were here right now.
She also highlighted on their family's motto from tournaments at Glenville State, the 3 Gs.
Stickers that say 3G, and it stands for the 3 games in the tournament. We want to win the 3 games, but more importantly, it stands for give God glory in everything that we do. We want to give him the glory.
As her mom, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to your daughter as the new head coach of Tennessee?
Keep your faith. Just God brought you here. He wouldn't have given you this opportunity if he didn't think you could do it. And he hasn't failed you yet. He's not going to fail you now.
All right, let's pick some games. Start with number 1 South Carolina, number 4 Maryland. Who you guys got?
I'm going to go South Carolina all the way.
For sure.
South Carolina.
Totally fair. Can't argue with that one. Now, a little bit more interesting, your most compelling matchup. Number 2 Duke versus number 3 UNC. Who you got, Delaney?
I don't know. I think it really could go either way, but I got to go with Duke.
Totally fair.
I'm going to go with North Carolina. Courtney Bankart has that program rolling, and then their experience, so I'm going to go with them.
A little bit of a 3-seed upset. I like it. I like it. Let's look at a couple others. Number 3, Notre Dame. Number 2, TCU.
Okay, so this is a tough one for me, but I'm going to have to go Notre Dame.
As much as I want it to be Notre Dame, I feel like it will go to TCU just because of their record being so much bigger in wins.
Absolutely fun one. Now we got number 1, USC versus number 5, Kansas State. Who you got?
Okay, I'm going to go with USC to carry on with this one. Do I think they'll make it past this round? No, but I think Lindsey Gottlieb will have her team ready and prepared to keep calm and carry on without Juju.
I've also got to go with USC just because even though they did lose, or they lost Juju for the season, they were still able to play very well for the rest of that game, winning by over 40 points.
I like it. I like it. Let's look at LSU, NC State. Another fun 2-3 matchup. Who we got?
Let's go LSU.
LSU.
I'm Team LSU.
All right, got the 3 seed taking the upset again. We got one more 1 seed to talk about. UCLA taking on number 5, Ole Miss. Ole Miss had pretty rough road to get there. Who we think is going to win?
I'm going to take UCLA. They've been dominant all season, and Lauren Betts is just so good.
I entirely agree at UCLA.
Well, there we go. Time to close it out. Let's go to the desk real quick because we got to talk about Tennessee, Texas. These guys just talked about it for so long. Who do we think is going to win that game?
And Riley, I feel like Pat McAfee up here on the desk, ready to make my pick, my decision for the game that all of our eyes are on. My point is this: 1 seeds do not lose early in March. Other than 2 years ago when we had the iconic LSU versus Iowa, the Kim Mulkey versus Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese was there. The last time a 1 seed lost in the Sweet 16 was 2020, 2021. Before that, it was 2015, 2016. So it might be tempting to pick Texas. And then the boos come in. But for me, I got to go with the Lady Vols. I trust in Kim Caldwell to get this program back to the top and defeat number 1 seed Texas.
Well, that was very passionately said.
I know.
I'm loving it.
Great.
However, I think Texas has too much to. I'm sorry. I think they have too much going for them. Like you said, number 1 seeds, especially in women's basketball, they do not lose in March. So I think it'll be another super close game, and it'll come down to the end. But I'm gonna have to give it to Texas.
Listen, I have to agree with Alex. I think Tennessee takes it. I think they've got this momentum right now that's working for them. How long will it last? I'm not sure, but yes, Texas is going to be a tough team to beat. We're going to have to be at our best, but I think I have faith. I have faith in the Vols. I believe they can do it.
There we go. Give me some. Guys?
I like those picks. Jordan?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to give Texas.
I'm torn. I've seen Lady Vols do great things, so I do really want them to go as far into this tournament as they can, but I do think it will go to Texas.
Wow. So, according to Torch Sports, Texas is going to take the win. But that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in to support Torch Sports. We'll be back next week, and go Vols and Lady Vols.